Welcome to this screencast on common assessments and data analysis. So what exactly is a common assessment? Well, a common assessment is any assessment given by two or more teachers with the intention of collaboratively examining the results to determine student mastery of the standards, the effectiveness of our instructional planning and our implementation. Also, do we need to modify our lesson or unit plans based on the students' results? And finally, we can learn best practices for teaching the standards by learning which teachers are able to achieve higher results and then having them share the strategies that they've used for teaching the concepts and skills. So, why common assessments? What do they provide that isn't available when individual teachers create and administer assessments? Well, they give the same opportunity to all students to show mastery. Furthermore, common assessments ensure standards are being addressed in every classroom. Also, common assessments promote collegiality and collaboration on the part of teachers who engage in problem solving together. And common assessments help to pinpoint concepts and skills that need to be retaught. It becomes very apparent which concepts and skills were not mastered by a majority of the students across a grade level or department. You're a member of a group of teachers that wants to develop a common assessment. How do you get started? Here's a design overview. First, you'll want to define your purpose. What is it that you and your team members want to assess? Why? Next, you'll want to identify those standards that are fair game to include in the assessment, meaning that all teachers agree to address those standards in their lessons prior to the assessment. You'll want to determine a representative balance of assessment items so that you make sure to give appropriate weighting and representation to the standards being addressed. You're going to want to think about the instructional process or lesson planning that you will be implementing and your colleagues will be implementing to prepare students for this assessment. You will then select and develop your assessment items. After that process, you will administer the assessment, score it, and then analyze the results with the members of your grade level or department. Let's talk about how to identify essential common outcomes when creating a common assessment. Essential common outcomes can be measured using the criteria of endurance, leverage, and readiness for the next level of learning. Let's talk about each of these. So first, endurance. Are students expected to retain the skills, knowledge, and concepts or standards being taught long after the assessment is completed? Another indicator of an essential common outcome is leverage. Is this skill, concept, knowledge, standard applicable to many academic disciplines? And finally, the last criterion, readiness for the next level of learning. Is this skill, knowledge, concept, or standard preparing the student for the next level of learning? Using those criteria will help you in creating your common assessment items. We've created and administered our common assessment. Now it's time to analyze the data. Let's look at the recommendations that were provided by Dan Esquera, who was math department chair at the time of Whittier High School. In our data analysis session, we should only have current teachers for the course, not administrators or previous teachers of the course who don't have a stake in the game. Once the data is distributed, you want to give the teachers a moment or two of silence, time for them to take the data in and observe any trends, items of strength or weakness. Then you discuss the departmental or grade level strengths and weaknesses noted by the teachers. Often you will find that on a particular item, a teacher may have stronger results than his or her colleagues, and at that time, you want to stop and ask that teacher to share the instructional strategies he or she used to teach that particular concept or skill. Then, as a group, you want to decide which problems should be repeated on the next test, because an unacceptable percentage of students achieve mastery on those items. And then you need to discuss how you want to review or reteach those concepts or skills as a department or grade level to properly prepare the students to be able to achieve mastery the next time they see those items again on a common assessment for the department or grade level. This slide reveals some mock data from a 10th grade Algebra 1 test. This particular test was administered to 293 students, and there were 14 questions. The standards that were tested on each of the questions are noted here below the number for each question. And you can see the average percentage correct that the students achieved on each of the questions. The letters A through E represent the 5 teachers who teach Algebra 1 to 10th grade students. And teachers A, B, C, and D have one section of the course. Teacher E, in this scenario, has 2 sections of the course, and so the top line reveals the average percentage correct of the 2 sections that teacher has. Let's take a look at item number 5. And as you can see, teacher A had 60% of her students get that item correct. Teacher B, 92%. Teacher C, 44%. Teacher D, 52%. And teacher E had 59% average of his or her students get that item correct. So what this might bring up is to ask teacher B how he or she taught this standard. In this case, it's standard number 10 as noted in the chart. But what were the instructional strategies used? Because clearly teacher B achieved much higher mastery of this standard than the other teachers in this group. Now, looking at the data a different way, you might want to look at item 12. As you go down, you can see that in every case, the teacher's students' percentage of mastery was quite low across the board. So this might be one that the department or grade level would say, gosh, we really need to reteach this particular standard. The students didn't achieve a high enough level of mastery. So how are we going to reteach this? And then that particular standard would show up again on the next common assessment to ensure that an acceptable percentage of students achieve mastery on it. So these are just a couple of ways that teachers can examine this type of data from a common assessment. The costs associated with common assessment development and data analysis are as follows. Substitute costs equal $115 per day per teacher if you decide to sub teachers out to work on common assessment development or to sub them out to analyze the data from common assessments. If teachers prefer, rather than missing class, to work additional hours after school or on weekends to create common assessments or analyze data, that cost is $38 per hour per teacher. Another avenue that could be used either in conjunction with the previous two or on its own could be using staff meeting or department meeting time to create common assessments or to analyze the resulting data. And that's part of the workday. So there would be no additional resulting costs from that particular option. But likely the staff meeting and department meeting time is not going to be sufficient enough to meet the needs for common assessment development and data analysis, depending on the frequency of the common assessments. Common assessments are a very valuable tool and one that helps teachers and promotes student learning. I hope that you have found this screencast to be helpful. Thank you for listening.